In this video, we will be talking about Hutto, Texas. Now, in the real estate world, it is commonly referred to as Austin's hidden gem, also commonly referred to as a boomtown. And in this video, we will be talking about why people are moving there, the affordability, the housing, the different imperfections, and the things you can expect to do in Hutto, Texas. And we're getting after it right now. Hello again, everybody. If this is your first time to the channel, my name is Frank, and I'm part of a team at the award-winning J.B. Goodwin Brokerage right here in the stupendous Austin, Texas. Each and every week, we put out tons of new content all in regards to living in Austin, Texas, whether it be the pros and cons, comparisons of certain cities and states, vlog tours of certain areas and neighborhoods, and so much more. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing to this channel and ringing the little bell so that you're notified each and every time we put out a new video. In addition, we get reach outs all the time from people just like you who are in need of our help when relocating to this great city of Austin, Texas. We love learning about their lifestyle and placing them in that perfect spot, making their move as smooth as possible to where all they've got to do is pack up those boxes and we take care of the rest. But the only way we can do that is by you reaching out to us. So whether you're 9 days away, 90 days away, or whatever the time frame may be, do not hesitate. Go ahead and shoot us a text, give us a call, send us an email any day of the week, any time of day. So let's get right to it and talk about Hutto, Texas. Now, recently in our comments, we've had quite a few requesting we do Hutto, and we absolutely listen. So due to popular demand, here we go. For starters, in order to understand Hutto, we need to take a little bit of a step back and paint the picture of how the demand for Hutto came to be. So basically, the city of Austin, Texas, as we all should know by now, has gotten more and more and more and more and more expensive, especially in the past 5 years. Certainly the last decade, but especially as it's becoming such a hotspot for relocation. So as the median went from $350 to $400 to $450 to $500,000, as it just keeps going up and up and up, a lot of people are realizing, well, you know, we might not want to live in this city. We might not even be able to get in around the city. And Austin's growth has been primarily going north and north and north. So they look to the suburban areas, the city towns surrounding Austin. And to give you an idea, for many, many years now, the two main arteries within the greater Austin area would be 183 and I-35. I-35 is really where it started to boom. They started building around 35. So naturally, you'll have Georgetown, you'll have Round Rock, and you'll have Pflugerville. Now, when you're looking at 183, you're going to see Liberty Hill, you're going to see Leander, you're going to see Cedar Park, and much of North Austin as well, where a lot of those suburbs started to bloom. But what happens as time goes by and Cedar Park explodes and Round Rock explodes and Georgetown has substantial growth, and even Leander now, in my opinion, is beginning to explode, especially in the next 5 to 10 years with all the plans for development they have. Naturally, the prices in those areas begin to increase as well. So people are thinking, well, we've got to keep our options open. These places are in such high demand. We thought this was our budget, but now we're getting outbid. And so it's a ripple effect based off the original growth of downtown Austin. Now, when Hutto came in the picture, it was around the time when Pflugerville had already expanded and exploded, same with Round Rock. And Hutto is a little bit north of Pflugerville and a little bit east of Round Rock. And just as recently as 10, maybe 15 years ago max, Hutto was just an afterthought. I mean, even for me, I knew of it, but in my head, it was like, oh, Hutto, like who would want to live out in Hutto? Even the name for me kind of just set the tone for it, right? Like, okay, Hutto, it's not really anything. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little town. But in the past 5 to 10 years, Hutto has very quietly started to just spike and go up and up and up. And now in 2021, Hutto has actually become quite a underground hotspot for first-time buyers, for investors, and has now established itself as a relatively affordable alternate option to a lot of the more popular, well-known, in-demand areas. However, it being the easier option isn't the only reason why people are moving there. So it's time we dig a little bit deeper and find out more reasons why Hutto is attracting so many people who are relocating to the greater Austin area. For starters, in Austin, you have the two main counties, Travis County and Williamson County. Now, Travis County is very established, it is humongous, it has a significant amount of more people than Williamson County. However, Williamson County is forecasted to grow 4 times its size in the next 30 years. Yes, because it is relatively more affordable. Yes, because it's more spread out and away from the hustle and bustle of the city, but also because there is just so much land to be developed, which ultimately means newer and newer builds. Now, to be completely frank with you, it is an investor's dream to see all these different areas that are forecasted to absolutely explode. And Hutto and Leander, in my opinion, are at the top of the list. They are still relatively in their infancy. To give you an idea, Hutto itself only has just under 31,000 residents as of the making of this video in July, wow, time flies, of 2021. So in the grand scheme of things, Hutto is a baby. I mean, I don't mean to insult anyone who's been living there or insult its history, because it is rich in its own sort of culture, but when compared to Round Rock, when compared to Austin, when compared to Cedar Park, even Georgetown, 31,000 people is small. That is a tiny, small town within such a humongous part of Texas, which is the greater Austin area. And now, since I mentioned Hutto's relative affordability, let's get into some of the numbers. Now, if you're looking at Round Rock, if you're looking at Georgetown, if you're looking at Cedar Park, all of those medians are easily going to be around $450,000. Well, in Hutto, as of May of 2021, the median home price for Hutto was right around $370,000, which is up 42% from last year. So that tells you it's already on the fast track to growth and appreciation. But here's the cool part. Even though the median for that month of May was just under 370, I think it was 368,000 to be exact, the low end of those averages, because remember, that's the median, the low end right now is right around $220,000, $250,000. And what's really cool is that even though the median, as I mentioned, is closer to 370, what makes Hutto so attractive is the abundance of development and new builds, many of which can be purchased for around $315,000, at least starting out. So to further elaborate on this, if you look at the map and you look at Hutto, compared to Round Rock, compared to Georgetown, there's a lot more green around Hutto, which means it is just empty space for these developers to build new neighborhoods and communities. I did a little digging and a little homework on these different developers and plans for these neighborhoods, and each of them, and there are numerous amounts of these developers, but each of them has slated about 1,000 homes. Some of them have slated about 1,400 homes for each of these big development projects. And at the rate that they're cranking them out for people, you're looking at around maybe a little less than 100 new build homes ready to go per month. So when you think about that, it really is remarkable, the growth of Hutto, because as I mentioned, Cedar Park had its phase and then it slowed down. Round Rock had its phase, still popping, but slowed down compared to its initial boom. Same with Pflugerville, same with Georgetown, but Hutto is kind of where Leander is right now, but even more so in my opinion, with just so much land, breaking ground and building these communities for people. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Let's say you were in the market for a pre-owned home. Let's say that's what you thought would be your best option if you're trying to get into Hutto. Well, Hutto does have a number of communities and neighborhoods that have been around for a little while. And just looking at one, say that was built between 2007 and 2014, those went at the time for around, I don't know, the low 200s to around $250,000. Well, if you look at them now, those same pre-owned homes between 7 and 14 years later are now worth on average between $350,000 and $400,000, which is where that median comes from of around 368. So if you can believe it, all of these new build developments, all of these new homes that are being spat out at an insane rate are actually going to be cheaper than a house that is between 7 and 14 years old. On average, of course, because if you load that thing up with options, then you might be paying a bit more than that $315,000 or $320,000 price that I mentioned. But it really goes to show the appreciation still in just such a short amount of time, where it's screaming to people who are paying attention to the market that now is the time to get in. Now is absolutely the time to get your foot in the door and get some equity on whatever you end up purchasing now after another 5, 10, or 15 years. Now, obviously, a majority of the clients we've helped are looking for their forever home where they intend to spend at least 10 years, maybe 20 years, and be there for quite a while. But those aren't the only types of people we help, nor those aren't the only types of people who are buying a house. A number of the people we've helped have the type of job where they already know every 3 years, say every 5 years, maybe every 7 or 8 years, they will be relocated or they'll be shipped out somewhere. So they are also looking to make some profit on whatever house they buy now and sell for it later. And of course, obviously, a number of investors look at Hutto as well, as I've already mentioned in this video, just because of its growth and its appreciation, which I've just spelled out for you guys. Now, in addition to the small population that Hutto currently has, in addition to its relative affordability, in addition to its growth and development, another reason that Hutto is attracting people is because of its safety. Online, you'll find that Hutto has a crime score of 29, which for reference is about 9 times lower than the national average. And I believe mathematically, the odds of a crime happening to you in Hutto are 1 in 270. Now, before moving on to learn more about Hutto, the good and the bad, go ahead and drop a comment down below with any questions, agreements, disagreements. We'd love to get involved with you guys. In addition, consider liking this video as well, as it really helps our channel grow and tells us that we're doing a good enough job providing some value for you guys. And lastly, if you have anyone in your life, a parent, a spouse, a child, a friend, who you know is relocating to Austin, Texas, go ahead and share our content with them and spread the good word. Now, moving right along, talking about Hutto Texas, I do acknowledge I've been quite positive. I've been talking about only the good aspects of Hutto, why people are moving there, what you can expect. But worry not, if you've watched any of our videos, you know I keep it brutally honest and I talk about the good and the bad. And I do assure you the bad is coming up, Hutto's imperfections. But first, let's talk about the things that you can do in Hutto and see whether or not it fits your desired lifestyle. Before going through the different things to do in Hutto, I will note that there is a recurring theme among all of these different activities, and after I go through what there is to do, we can talk about the theme and segue that into what might be considered a negative in regards to Hutto Texas. Now, for starters, if you like the hiking, if you like the jogging, if you like the cycling, taking your dog out, anything remotely active, you are going to want to check out Cottonwood Trail. I believe it's about 3 miles, and it is one of the go-to options for people who are local to Hutto or people who are passing through Hutto and want a bit of a slice of paradise to enjoy nature and Hutto's scenery. Hutto also has its weekly farmers markets, which I've always thought are the coolest things to go to. And it tells you, the nature of Hutto, right? To have a weekly farmers market, very community-based, supporting your local businesses and things of that nature. If I lived in Hutto, I would absolutely personally participate. In addition, you've got your highly rated Star Ranch Golf Club. And for me personally, I couldn't tell you the first thing about golf. I think it's a stereotype among real estate agents to go and play golf and talk business, and a number of my peers actually do that. But for me, I turned it on TV and I just don't know what the hell's going on. My expertise is limited to putt-putt. I know that's quite a cliche to say, but got to keep it real. I'm not about to go on and on about this great golf course when I don't really know my right from my left in what it offers, but I do know it is one of these staples of Hutto, Texas. It is highly respected and rated, and a lot of people like to do their golfing out there. In addition to that, you've got the 44-acre Hutto Lake Park, and this is going to be your destination for picnics. This is going to be your destination for basketball. It'll also have a fishing dock. It'll also have playscapes for the kids, and so much more. So if you're looking at that and the Cottonwood Trail, you've got 2 different options. One is more active, one is more chilling. I would go for the chilling one, but it's nice to know that Hutto, despite its size, has these activities for the families who are relocating there. In addition to that, you've got your historic Old Town, which is going to be Hutto's main hub. It's going to be a area of locally owned restaurants, locally owned shops, bars, and things of that nature. So if you are someone who likes to enjoy your Saturday or Sunday just walking around the downtown area of whichever city, town, suburb you live in, look no further. Hutto has something like that. I'm sure it parallels to Round Rock's downtown, Georgetown's downtown, maybe not to the fully established extent of those two, but as I mentioned, it is a little city on the rise. but it already has something like that. So if you do enjoy kind of bouncing between shops and restaurants and bars of that nature, Hutto's got you covered. As well, you'll have TriStar Farm, which I have never been, but to my knowledge, it's basically a place to enjoy horseback riding tours and things of that nature, enjoy the tranquility, because one of the great things about Hutto, depending on who you are, is that it's just quiet and it's land, and you know, your activities are going to be of a certain flavor. But fear not, you've also got your shopping. So there is something in Hutto called the Co-op, and its sign eerily resembles the Domain sign. If you've ever heard of the Domain, it is a staple of Austin, Texas, basically a mega center for entertainment, for restaurants, for shopping. It even has its own bar strip. We've done a couple videos on the Domain, so be sure to check those out as well if you're curious. But Hutto has what is called the Co-op, and it is about 35 acres, essentially being Hutto's own version of the Domain. So it is still relatively new. It is going to only expand in the years to come, but as it stands right now, you've got your shopping, you've got your entertainment places, you've got your restaurants, and it is contemporary, it is hip, it is modern, and it is tied to the city's age-old history in the way they named it and the area that it's located. So if I'm new to Hutto, I am definitely excited about that and looking forward to how it continues to expand and to hopefully one day something very comparable to Austin's Domain. Lastly, I'll mention something called Perfect Game. It is the largest baseball showcase organization in the entire country. This is a $800 million project in Hutto that is going to have an indoor sports and convention center. It's going to have 24 baseball fields, shopping, and restaurants as well. So this is going to be a humongous project that is going to impact the economy of Hutto, bring a ton of new jobs to Hutto, and bring a lot of tourists to Hutto. My only complaint is that it's baseball. I'm not trying to insult any baseball lovers out there. I do have a respect and appreciation for all sports, but I am a basketball person, so if you told me there's an $800 million basketball project with 24 basketball courts, I would be moving to Hutto. Now, at this point in the video, I will ask you if you in fact noticed a theme in regards to all of the things I mentioned you can do in Hutto, Texas. And the answer is that most, if not all of them, are outdoor activities. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, Frank, that's great. I'm a very active, outdoorsy, adventurous person, and it's one of the things that attracted me to Austin in the first place. Respect, I understand exactly where you're coming from, but here's the catch. Those are strictly outdoorsy activities in Hutto in Texas. And the reason I say that is because between May and early September, it is wicked blazing hot here. The triple digits begin around June and they last through August, with July and early August being the worst of it. So to give you a little idea, a 90-degree day here or a 93-degree day here in your app is going to feel like 105, 108, because the air here, no, it's not as humid as Houston, for example, but it is certainly not as dry as Phoenix or even Los Angeles, for example. So if 93 degrees in June can feel like 108 because the air is just dense and muggy, it's like opening the oven, imagine when it is 100 degrees or 105 degrees or 108 degrees in July and August, what that will feel like in your app. I don't even want to imagine it. So no, that is not specific to Hutto. That is a thing about living in the South here in Texas and in Austin more specifically. But I tie it into this video. The reason why it is relevant is because for a majority of the year, the weather will be great to enjoy what Hutto has to offer outdoors. But, you know, when it's summer vacation, your kids are off of school, you have some flexibility with your time perhaps, and it's time to go enjoy the fruits of Hutto, you're going to absolutely boil outside. And if you want to learn more in-depth things about the summers here in Austin, Texas, we did put out a video recently, so be sure to check that out. But that is my essential warning to you, that it is great to have all of these outdoorsy fun activities, and no, that is not only what Hutto has to offer, but it is a majority of what Hutto has to offer. And so it's just to beware. I'm not trying to deter you or be disenchanting or dissuade you from Hutto if you've had your eye on it, but you want to think about everything. You want to think about the little things, right? The stuff that you might be ignoring and be blinded by your excitement. You know what I mean? And moving as such, a significant moment in most everyone's lives that, you know, you want to consider, okay, well, what won't I like about Hutto? And that's one of those things that, you know, the weather is what it is here. I have my issues with it. I refuse to accept it. And you're gonna feel it a little bit extra if you're going to be doing any of those things. Now, on the note of negativity, it's time we dive into some of the flaws and imperfections, ultimately subjective, that are worth mentioning in regards to Hutto. And no, I am not trying to offend. I do apologize if I offend anyone with this, any local Austinites or people living in Hutto, but I'm just trying not to be one of those sleazy agents who paints a perfect picture and tells you everything's sunshine and rainbows. That's, in my opinion, that's just gross. I try to be consistent, as I've always been on this channel, and address the good and the bad so that you are as informed as possible. For starters, let's talk about Hutto's location. For reference, it is right around 130 and 79 if you look at the map, and it is going to be right around 30 miles from that downtown metro area. And so if you are in Hutto and you're feeling bored, or you're someone who is just starved of things to do that fit your lifestyle, because some people, of course, are perfectly happy in Hutto, but if you are someone who's going to be living there and you are wanting more than it has to offer that you can only get, say, around downtown Austin, you are going to be facing quite a drive. And yes, you'll have access to Round Rock, which is close. Yes, you'll have access to Pflugerville, which is close. Both of those places do have things to do, but Austin obviously is going to have everything. So ultimately, Hutto's location is just less than ideal. It is going to be further away from Austin than the Leanders of the world, the Cedar Parks, the Georgetowns, the Round Rocks, which of course is a humongous selling point as to why a lot of those suburban areas are very much in demand right now. The good news, however, 79 and 130, as I mentioned, are pretty much direct access. You know, you just fly down there. It's not necessarily going to be as messy as I-35 or as messy as 183 can get. So yes, there's a distance, but it's also kind of painless, at least in my opinion, making that drive. So naturally, talking about the distance, let's segue to the next negative, if you will, about Hutto. And that would be that there are no, at least big major employers in Hutto. You're going to find those in Round Rock, you're going to find some in Pflugerville, you're going to find plenty around that North Austin tech area. Tesla's here, Facebook's here, Amazon's here, Google's here, IBM is here, Dell is here, an abundance of jobs in healthcare. And of course, ultimately, many people will also be working out of downtown Austin. So now this becomes not only an issue of having to drive out of your way to enjoy things to do, but it's also now an issue of, well, if you're commuting every day, that's going to be, in my opinion, a pretty decent headache. Now, granted, if you are moving here from either of the coasts and you're used to a commute that is horrific and outrageous and a dense population and loads of traffic, then it's not going to be that bad, right? But if you are used to, wherever you're living right now, a commute of 10, 15, 20 minutes, Hutto, you know, in relation to downtown, in relation to the tech world here in Austin, it's going to be quite an adjustment. The good news of that, however, is in light of COVID, a lot of people are realizing, hey, I can work from home. And a lot of the clients we've helped relocate have specifically asked us to find them homes that have a home office, a nice backyard where they will be spending a bulk of their time. So if that does apply to you, disregard everything I said. You know, you'll be perfectly content in Hutto if you're not having to commute each and every day for your job. The next negative, to some extent, that I'll mention are the schools in Hutto. Off the bat, I'll tell you, no, they're not horrible schools, but you are neighboring Round Rock. And Round Rock Independent School District and Leander Independent School District are the cream of the crop public school districts within the totality of the greater Austin area. They are right there neck and neck. The majority of people we've helped come who have families have been attracted to either Leander or Round Rock because their districts, one of them is 30,000 students, the other's 40,000 students. They cover a huge area of the map in terms of if you're zoned for these schools. They maintain excellent graduation rates. They maintain superb ACT and SAT scores. And if you're wanting to learn more about the districts in greater detail, we do have a video ranking the top 5 school districts in the greater Austin area. But for the sake of this video, I'll keep it on the shorter side, more general. The Hutto Independent School District is not a bad district, but it neighbors one of the greatest districts that Austin has to offer. A district that has tons of schools, old and brand new, that has brand new football stadiums, brand new buildings, great boosters that give money to the districts, you have your clubs, so on and so forth. And I'm not saying that Hutto has none of that, but it is a district in a place that only has 31,000 residents, that only is in its infancy of growth, that is yet to expand. And I do have high hopes for the district of Hutto, but as it stands right now, it's just not going to really compare. The Leander and Round Rock Independent School Districts on niche.com maintain grades of either an A or an A+, a majority of their schools ranking at 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, maybe 7.5 out of 10. Whereas the Hutto Independent School District, I believe, has a letter grade score of a B, not a B-, but not a B+, not even in the A realm. And a lot of their schools are going to be 5 out of 10s or 6 out of 10s. So is it bad enough to deter or dissuade you from Hutto? No, because at the end of the day, so many people are moving to Hutto and it's growing leaps and bounds. But it is worth mentioning, if schools are at the top of your list, if that is the #1 priority for you, if you're either planning to start a family, you've just started, or you're coming here with kids who are already of age to go to these schools, and you want them in the best possible schools, you know, Hutto is just not going to be competitive. It's not going to be at the top. But again, it's not horrible either. It's not even bad. It's respectable. I'm just painting a picture of context, reference, so that you have as good of an idea as possible. In addition to its location, in addition to its lack of major employers, in addition to the schools, I will talk about the scenery in Hutto. And this is not necessarily exclusive to Hutto. It's just by default of being in Texas. So real quick, if you come from a place that is abundant with gorgeous natural landscapes and scenery, the Montanas of the world, the Oregons of the world, the Washington States of the world, Utah, you name it, these gorgeous places, Texas, first and foremost, was just farm and ranch land. So yes, you will have your nice pretty fields, you'll have an abundance of trees, you'll have different bodies of water here, and even some hills in the nicer parts of Austin, Texas, but you're not going to have a skyline with mountains. You're not going to have these breathtaking wallpaper-esque locations. And Hutto, being what it is in its size and its place and its own evolution, is just going to be a lot of farm and ranch looking land. I mean, that is why, as I mentioned, so many just chunks of land are just being developed into neighborhoods, because on the map, it's a lot of green around that white, and it's just land, grass, you know. It's so, I bring that up. It might be your flavor of nature, it might not, but it's worth mentioning, you know, if you're coming from a place where you're just used to that, you have the luxury of being close to a beach or something of that nature, pun intended. Hutto and Texas itself, not just Hutto, is not necessarily going to deliver. And I just wanted to run that by you guys so you have as good of an idea as possible. In addition to that, I'll state another negative, which I've kind of alluded to earlier in this video, but I'll elaborate a little bit more on now, and that would be the overall size and the things to do. Hutto is simply not Round Rock. It's not downtown Austin. It's not even Pflugerville. So it depends on who you are. That's what I'm trying to get at, because I feel bad saying this as a negative because it's ultimately subjective, but it is a small town. You know, 31,000 people, you know, you might be wanting something bigger. You might want the hustle and bustle. You might want more life, you know what I mean? And so, yes, it has its parks, yes, it has its activities and fun things to do, which will only grow and improve, in my opinion, as Hutto begins to expand. But as it stands right now, there's no nightlife, there's no water parks, there's no resorts, and so depending on who you are, it just might not be enough. And as mentioned, it's removed from a lot of these places that do have what you want. Now lastly, I will mention the tax rates of Hutto. And before I get into that, I'm going to preface that with some more clarity and context. 2 of the biggest reasons why people come to Austin, Texas, the greater Austin area in general, 1 being the bang for your buck, and 2 being no state income tax. And while both of those things are true, where Texas really sneaks up and gets you, the fine print, are those property taxes. So it is true that if you sell your tiny place in Portland for $450, you can come here and use that $450 and put it towards a place maybe near a golf course, maybe with a theater room, maybe with 4 or 5 bedrooms, this or that. You know, your options really expand with the bang for your buck here in Texas. Now, granted, Austin won't compete as well with San Antonio, Houston, or Dallas, which are more affordable. But by default of being in Texas, it's still going to get you more for your money than a majority of these coasts, which is where a lot of our clients are coming from. But yes, as I said, the tax rates are what get you. So you might be living in a place where you are used to spending 1% a year, maybe 1.5% a year. Well, here in the greater Austin area, if you're not going to be in downtown Austin, which might be as low as 2%, 2.2, 2.3, or even, I don't know, Southeast Pflugerville has some pretty competitive tax rates, but it's an older part. If you are going to be in the Leanders, the Georgetowns, the Cedar Parks, the Round Rocks, and the Huttos of the world, you're looking at least 2.5%. To my knowledge, Hutto is between 2.6 and 2.7 on average, and a lot of these new build communities could be closer to 3%. And to paint you a picture, if you found a house, this is the example I always use, if you found a house for $350, competitively priced, although in Hutto that's pretty average, but yes, let's say you get $350 and you lock it in at a 2.5% tax rate. So we're going below the 2.6, 2.7 numbers that are pretty normal for Hutto. You are going to be paying on average per year, $350 at 2.5, just under $9,000. So it's just, that's where they get you, you know? And if you're buying a house for $500, for $600, for $700, because yes, in Hutto you can still buy upwards of $5 or $6 million. It does have luxury if that is what you are after. But imagine you do spend $700 and your tax rate is 2.85. I mean, that's the thing. You know, a lot of the clients we've helped in the past, which is why I now make it a point to warn you guys in my videos, they budget, you know, they get pre-approved, they talk with their lender, they know exactly in their heads, this is our price cap, this is what we can afford, this is our sweet spot, this is what we're looking for, but they're not accounting for those property taxes, and it just messes up their budget, you know, having to pay more than they thought they would, and they have to redo everything. So rather than have you get blindsided by that, I like to make it a point to not scare you, not intimidate you, but inform you so that you have more knowledge to work with and that you can be better prepared for your move here to the greater Austin area. And so Hutto might be for you, it might not be for you. You know, you might be looking at Leander, you might be looking at South Austin, Georgetown, downtown, anything in between. That is what we're here for though, finding out about your lifestyle, what you like, what your needs are, and placing you in that perfect spot, making your move as smooth as possible to where all you've got to do is pack up those boxes and we take care of the rest. We love helping people just like you who are in need of help when relocating to Austin, Texas. But again, the only way we can do that is by you reaching out to us. So do not hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90 days away, go ahead and shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call, any time of day, any day of the week. And again, we put out tons of new content each and every week, all in regards to living in Austin, Texas. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing to this channel, ringing that little bell so that you're notified each and every time we put out a new video. In addition, comment down below with any questions, agreements, disagreements. We'd love to hear from you guys. Consider liking this video as it really helps our channel grow and tells us that we're doing a good enough job providing value for you guys. Share it as well with anyone you know in your life who might be needing our help when relocating to Austin, Texas. And until the next one, you guys, we will absolutely catch you later.